All right, here we go. We're going to have Mary Scott talking about, she is the director, the Working Cats Program Director for ASAP Cats. She will be talking about running a successful Working Cats program. Mary was tired of the 9 to 5 life as a paralegal, and in 2009, Mary left law to start her career in animal welfare. Mary is one of several volunteers in leadership positions at ASAP Cats, the open admission stray cat shelter located in southern Santa Barbara County, California. As a leader of its Working Cats program, Mary places non-social cats as mousers on farms, ranches, nurseries, and large residential properties in the Santa Barbara and Santa Ynez Valley areas. Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much, Stacy. I'm so excited to be here today. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the ASAP Working Cats program. I've been the program director since 2017 as a volunteer at ASAP. The program was started in the late 90s by volunteers who were really unhappy and frustrated seeing healthy feral cats being euthanized for lack of a better option. The program was rebranded in 2016 with the cat. You can see the cat there with the hard hat. That's our official logo. And I'll be sharing what we found to work and be successful to establish a program that's really popular in our community. And I'm hoping you're going to get some takeaways and inspiration. And if you have a Working Cats program already, you'll get some tips. And if you don't have one, well, it would just be great if you are able to get one set up in your shelter or rescue. Okay, so what are work? They are non-social or feral cats placed as mousers in alternate adoptive settings, usually farms, ranches, nurseries, warehouses, larger residential properties. Remember, this is the south part of Santa Barbara County that we're dealing with, and there are some larger residential properties in the area. We've got a photo there of Chummy, the working cat, taking a break from catching mice to get some rays off the pool there. He's a working cat alum. And these cats are given a live outcome via the Working Cats program. Otherwise, there really aren't many options for the non-social cats in shelters, at least in our area and in shelters today. And then what is ASAP? ASAP is a 501c3 nonprofit in Santa Barbara, again, Southern California. We partner with Santa Barbara County Animal Services. You see the two logos up there. Provides the cat sheltering services for the southern part of Santa Barbara County and is the open admission stray shelter for southern Santa Barbara County. We take in approximately 1,000 cats each year. They come through our doors. Our current live release rate for 2023 is about 95.7%. So we're really fortunate. We have a very extensive donor base, community support, and are able to really do a great job for many, with our programs, and for many reasons have a great live release rate. And the Working Cats program, it started out really as a program of last resort. And I've really refined the program, I feel, with some of the things I'm going to talk about today, making it more customized outdoor cat adoption solutions. I do matching. Luckily, we have a behavior team, so I know a little bit about the disposition, behavior, and the background of the cats that I'm placing as working cats. So when I know a little bit about the cats, I'm able to match them not only to their environment that they're getting placed in, also to their owners. So, of course, the adopters have rodent issues. That's why they need cats. They may also have allergies to indoor cats. A lot of people are cat lovers and they come to us saying, we love cats, we want cats, but we have to have outdoor cats because we have allergies. So the Working Cats program makes sure the cats, humans, and their environment, their property, meaning their property, are well matched. And here we have a little guy that was placed at a ranch in Lompoc. And acclimation protocols, I'll be talking about those in more detail today. The acclimation protocols implemented help with the retention of the cats to their new home. And it's really a lot about retention. It's really, pretty straightforward to set up cats on a property in their acclimation cages and have an acclimation protocol. But are the cats, after release, remaining home to the property? That is the key issue. And that's what really keeps us going to refine our protocols and procedures, just keeping the cats home to the property after release. And here we have a little funny before and after. We've got Pachi Papa the cat in one of the acclimation cages inside of a shed. That's his night shelter. So the acclimation cage is a dog crate you can see set up for a single cat. He's got his cat carrier in there. He's got his litter box food and water. So there's the before, and then after he found his way into the home, into the cupboard and the hearts of his adopters. Not every working cat winds up being an indoor house cat, but sometimes this does happen. And if the owners do not want the cat in the house, we are there with them to prevent that from happening and give them, advice on how to keep the cat outside. But sometimes the cats do wind up becoming indoor house cats as well. And enrichment is encouraged and provided for the cats during the acclimation period and beyond. We ask the owners to make their night shelter just as attractive as possible to keep the cats homed, even during the time that they're in the dog crate cages during the acclimation period. They have wand toys. We give out wand toys for the owners to play with the cats with, and also hammocks inside the cages. And now, where do working cats come from? The short answer is our regular ASAP cat shelter population. And our shelter population is largely comprised of stray cats, just your basic, Good Samaritans bringing in strays. Though we definitely are reducing our intakes and have a very robust community cats program, keeping the cats out in the community and not just flooding the shelter with strays that might be owned, might be healthy and just fine in the community. And we also have our ASAP Tiny Lions program. Now, this program we're so enthusiastic about. The tiny lions are feral kittens that are socialized through the Tiny Lions program. We have behavior volunteers that work tirelessly to socialize them using chopsticks and baby food on fingers, baby food on chopsticks. That kind of gives you an idea of really just socializing the kittens to feel safer with human beings. And if they graduate, they are adoptable as domestic house cats through the ASAP regular adoption program. Another way we get, and back to tiny lions, if they do not get socialized, then they are designated to go to the working cats program and are placed as working cats. Protective custody, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. Owner goes to jail, has deceased, then we get cats coming to ASAP that are in protective custody. If they're relinquished and become under the custody of the cat shelter, then they may become working cats, depending on their disposition. And owner relinquishment. And this is actually a great way to find mousers, because if it's been an owned cat, the owner will often say, well, it's an outdoor cat and it's a great mouser, brings me presents always. And so then I'm able to place that cat as a working cat with a little bit of a promise of performance. Otherwise, I have to have a little disclaimer at the time of placement saying, I can't guarantee this cat's mousing prowess, but their very presence and the pheromones that they emit will be a deterrent to rodents, to the rats and mice. And how does a working cats program work? And this will describe, of course, how our program works. The first step is cultivation of leads, contacts, applicants for working cat adoption. So a lot of that is networking. We put up flyers. We have a very large Spanish-speaking population in Santa Barbara County. So we have a bilingual flyer. It's like a postcard-size flyer that we put out in feed shops, anywhere where people have barns. We distribute them to nurseries. We distribute them just around to vet hospitals in the area. It's just a kind of a typical networking type procedure. Sometimes I'll make cold calls if we're really low on applications to different establishments in the area that might be interested in adopting working cats, like the nurseries or people with stables. We have a lot of horses in Hope Ranch, which is in Santa Barbara, and also especially Hope Ranch. And then San Ynez Valley has a lot of ranches. Luckily, we get enough applications through word of mouth and applications through our website, which is in the upper right-hand corner in case you're curious. Luckily, we get enough applications to where I'm not having to call around to get get applications or find locations for working cats. And then here's our application. So basically, we are lucky enough to have shelter software, Shelter Love, if you may be familiar. And I've created this application and have it right in Shelter Love. So it networks right into our software. Once I approve an application, that just creates a person record, and we're able to attach the cats and keep track of everything just pretty seamlessly. So here's the application. Some of the questions are things like, do you prefer a feral or semi-social cat? Because ASAP has a behavior team that will, with any cat that's showing some behavior issues, they'll do a behavioral assessment, and they will work with any cats with the ultimate goal of that cat being adopted out as a domestic house cat. And if it doesn't work, if it just is taking too long, because we don't want cats in cages, languishing in cages and being unhappy, then the cats come to the working cats program and are placed as working cats. And so I have an idea from the behavior team. What is this cat's disposition? Is it a semi-social cat? Is it going to be safe in a placement where there may be small children, for example? Or is this a cat that's pretty rough around the edges and pretty fractious and might do better on a ranch where there's plenty of room, plenty of space for that cat to just stretch out and not have to be around people very closely? And are there other animals on the site? Dogs are definitely not a deal breaker. I do like to do a site visit if there are dogs, especially if there are dogs, to make sure the owner has good command over the dog, just for the cat's safety. And adequate nighttime shelter. That can be a barn, shed, or outbuilding. And are you willing to commit to a regular feeding schedule? Bring cat in at night. That's very important. That's one of the very important parts of our program and our protocols. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Making arrangements for care when you're out of town. Do you have a pet sitter, neighbor, family member, handy person on the ranch, someone who can feed the cats on a daily basis, make sure they have fresh water every day, and make sure that they come in at night, at least making best efforts to get them in at night. And do you accept responsibility for the cat's health and well-being, vet care? So if any injuries come about for whatever reason, or if the cat is showing signs of ill health, we expect the adopter to, they can contact us for a veterinary referral, a referral to a feral friendly vet. We don't expect them to be giving vaccines or annual wellness, though some of our really dedicated and cat savvy working cat adopters will do that. Kudos to them. We don't expect them to be trapping these cats and giving them annual veterinary care. However, if there is an injury, of course, if we want to see that cat taken care of, and we will provide trapping support as a follow-up service if trapping is needed, and give them advice on medical care, veterinary care. We don't provide that care, but we can point them in the right direction. And screening and selection of potential adopters. This is my favorite part, really, is just reaching out to the community, to the people who've applied. I review their application. I do a Google search where I plug in that's kind of the fun part, plugging their address in on Google, seeing where they live, what the surrounding area looks like, proximity to roads, how busy are those roads, if they're too close to a busy street. For example, I got an application recently right on a busy street, essentially, and no matter how cat savvy that adopter is and how much beautiful care they may give the cats, it just isn't going to be safe for the cats to be that close to a busy road. So then I will, as nicely as I can, I do deny applications in some instances. Phone interview, that's where I usually ask them a few questions, give them information about the program, and set up a site visit. I'll send them an email that has the relocation tip sheet. That's one of our handouts available to you. And I'll ask them to send me photos of the night shelter by email. That can be done in lieu of a site visit at times. And if they do have dogs, most of the time I'm doing the site visits. I have a team member, Belinda, who is just wonderful, lives over in Sawbank. She's over in the Santa Ynez Valley area, which is it's about an hour drive from where I am. So she handles the site visits in that area. I handle the Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, Montecito, Hope Branch, Goleta. Those are all the areas central to the ASAP cat shelter, and I handle the site visits in those areas. And our adoption process, like our regular adoption process, the working cat adoption process, is conversational. There are very few barriers. Some of the barriers might be bait boxes, even though we have state laws in California that are making the pesticides, the rodenticides, not less secondarily harmful, meaning if a rat ingests that pesticide, the pesticide companies are required to use a type of rodenticide is will not yield poison to whatever eats that rodent or that mouse, say a hawk or a cat. And of course, that's my area of concern. That's the jury's out on that. But I tend toward saying if you have bait boxes, remove them before the cats are set up with you. And then dogs posing a threat, of course, we're not going to place cats where they're prey-driven dogs that can't be controlled by the owner. And also, there's some owners that are kind of this old school of thought. Some of the large, like the ranch owners, who might feel like, oh, I just want the cat to hunt mice. I don't want to feed it. I want it to have that appetite, just ravenous appetite, so to make sure it'll hunt. We don't agree with that. We just feel that the cat needs to be fed every day and fresh water every day. And also, if they're basically, it's just if they're not kind of with the program of our protocols and what we have found works to keep the cats safe and home to the property, that's when I'm going to be tending to deny that application. And yes, approval, denial happening pretty rarely. And now we've got the designation of the cat as alternate placement. How does that happen within the ASAP cat shelter? And we have a pathway meeting every Monday, and the people who attend that meeting, aside from myself representing the Working Cats program, we have the wellness staff there, we have the executive director, we have a representative from our behavior team. We all work together and we talk about every cat in the shelter, which is just a wonderful opportunity. And it's just so nice, cuts through so many emails and errant communications to just talk about the cat, where the cat has come from, where it's going, and how to best get it, ideally, of course, out of the shelter and into a really good home. So during that meeting, between the executive director, the wellness staff, the behavior team, and myself, we make that designation if cats are not coming around to where they are going to be adopted into a regular home as a house cat, or they are designated to go. And how are cats housed at ASAP prior to their placement? We are so fortunate to have a little project that I might have had something to do with called the Working Cats Enclosure. And it's not huge, but it is quite a nice 2-room enclosure with a kind of airlock entry to keep the cats from escaping. And it has chain link in the front. I'll show you pictures of that in a second. And a double wide cage with a cat carrier in it is what we use before the cats go into the Working Cats enclosure when they first arrive at ASAP. So that allows them to be assessed both by the wellness staff and the behavior team. So a double wide cage with a cat carrier inside of it with a bed inside that carrier. The door is propped open so they can hide in there to the heart's content and feel safe. And here's the Working Cats enclosure, which I just think is a wonderful tool. And we're just so fortunate to have this in Santa Barbara. 2 rooms, you can see the cat there, the cat Mustard. He is just enjoying being able to stretch his legs, get some fresh air. We even use this for some of the behavior cats to get a better idea of their true nature, rather when they don't show well or behave as they naturally would in a cage, they become more themselves out in the Working Cats enclosure. And okay, scheduling placement. So once I've approved an application, it's time for me to schedule the placement as soon as possible. And that depends on my team members' schedule some of the time because she is doing the actual placement. And of course, it'll depend on the adopter as well. If we coordinate between the 2 parties, the adopter, we make sure to schedule it when they're not traveling for at least 2 months so that they can really bond with the working cats and that they are the primary caretaker, ideally, and we don't want them just taking off and leaving the cats in the hands of a pet sitter or a neighbor or friend. It's really best if they're home, if they're there. And then the placement coordinator, my team member Belinda, she sets the cats up on the placement property. I'll be showing you a little bit more about setup in just a moment. And shelter schedule. There may be some nuances to your shelter in terms of facilitating cat pickup for alternate placement, which is what we also call working cat placement, alternate placement. No, for our shelter, the ASAP shelter, no cat pickup on surgery days because the wellness staff is not available to help us get the cat into its carrier. And also midday or early afternoon have we've just found that to work out the best. And you want to have your key personnel available to assist you with getting that cat into a carrier and safely and without too much stress into the carrier and out into the vehicle. We use our RVT as the point of contact. Now, once they're in a double wide cage with the carrier in it, it becomes very simple. If they're hiding in the carrier, you just close the door to the carrier and lift the carrier out of the cage. Just super simple to pick up the cat, take them to alternate placement. Now in the working cats enclosure, it's a little bit more nuanced process, and we have some volunteers and staff who are just really good at getting the cat encouraged into a carrier without it being too difficult or traumatic. Little carrier training goes a long way for to help in that process. And then here's the placement team. There's me in the red shirt, my team member Belinda, that shows how we transport the cats. They're in carriers. They are covered with towels to keep them nice and calm. If there are two cats that aren't known to each other that are going to the same placement, we do place in pairs usually. They will be facing each other with the towel up. Otherwise, the next step after this photo would be to lower all of the towels down so they're covered and so they can travel just as calm as possible. And placement. We've got a picture of a former working cat or working cat there in Montecito, Santa Barbara, just loving life there. Got some nice digs, and that's Trevor. And anyway, the placement is usually inside of a night shelter. That's where the equipment is set up. The dog crate cages and zip ties are used with the crate cages. The cages are zip tied together to create like a cat condo. And bonded pairs or two cats that know each other will be put into a long cat condo with each other. If the cats don't know each other, they will be in separate cages. Of course, we wouldn't want to combine cats that don't get along or don't know each other in the same cage, just for safety reasons. And the cages are set up, they're covered, the cats are fed and ready for the overnight. As I said, these placements usually take place in the early to mid afternoon. And then feeding instructions and daily care instructions are given to the adopters. And our feeding protocol is twice a day food, wet and dry food, keep them as happy as possible during that acclimation period. They're in the acclimation cages for 2 to 3 weeks. And people will sometimes, really question this. Is this really necessary to keep cats enclosed for such a long period of time? And we found with our survey results, and the research has proven that cats being in a cages for 3, even enclosed in a barn for up to 4 weeks before release keeps them home to the property better than 2 weeks, 1 week or 2 weeks in the cages and then release. That's what we found. And here is the placement cage setup. And no cats in there, but it gives you a good view of how to set everything up. There's 2 dog crates there that are good size, zip tied together. We've got hammocks in there for the cats so they can stretch out and climb around a little bit. They like to sometimes get on top of their carrier as well. The carrier, in this case, would go with the cat in it, would go on top of the towel approximately there, and that towel is there for bedding. The litter box would go back to underneath where the yellow towel is. So they essentially have a bathroom and a living area. And so it makes it really a lot more tolerable for them to be enclosed for that length of time. Also the enrichment, playing with them with toys, wand toys, they're getting fed twice a day. We encourage them playing music for the cats in the cages. I had a family that had children read to the cats in the cages. All of this so good for the human animal bond to be fostered so the cats will not run away when they're released. Here's a lovely shot of 2 cats that don't know each other. So we've got 2 dog crates separate from each other, and then these lovely people who are the adopters, and you can see the carriers in there. The cats are in the carriers, and we're just gonna to get the cats ready for the night. Just pull that cloth over the entire thing. It's almost like a bird in a cage. Keep them nice and quiet and warm. During the winter, we use comforters. In California, we're so fortunate not to have such cold weather. I know working cats in cold weather climates is probably a bit of a different animal. Here we have a placement in Montecito that we did recently, and this is an interesting setup with a dog kennel that was catified and turned into a working cat enclosure. We've got hay bales in there for them to scratch their nails on. There's a ramp leading up to a shelf area, big wide shelf they built so that the cat carriers could be on there and not topple. I mean, that's something you just, got to be aware of is safety, making sure everything's set up safely. And here we have a little better view of enclosure, this working cat enclosure, where you've got a cat door built into the back there. I really encourage people to install a cat door to make ingress and egress all that much easier for the cats, especially if you're not able to get a cat inside at night. It's really important to be able to have a cat door that is set to in only or yeah, to in only at night so that they can come in and hopefully keep the predators out away from their food. And yeah, so here's another view. Here's the cats. It was a mother and 4 kittens that were placed as working cats there. Another shot. You can see the water set up there. And here we are. This is what their view essentially. The working cat view was raised beds. They're growing some vegetables there. They do have fencing. Now they do have predators on the property. They were reported. Predators are we have definitely a concern. We have coyotes, bobcats, in some areas even bears. That's where the acclimation protocol is really important, trying to get them in at night, safe from the as safe from the predators as possible. So they're 3 weeks in the cages to rehome, reset their inner kitty GPS to their new home. And there is an option of 2 weeks in the cages, 1 week outside of the cages, free roaming, where they could be closed in within their night shelter and then release. So, for example, barn, 2 weeks in the cages inside of the barn, and then released from the cages with the barn entirely closed down, providing for natural light, of course, somehow, like some windows. And then a week inside of the barn, roaming around. The owner moves the feeding station to where it should be permanently, along with bedding, setting up the bedding, getting the cats ready to kind of weaning them off the cages, and then they are released. And then a key point of our acclimation process is to ring. We have a bell that we give to all adopters. The bell is rung at each mealtime, AM and PM. This is Pavlovian conditioning, just to get the cats to trained essentially. And some cats are really, especially if they're food motivated, they will come running when that bell rings. You could also use a tree container and shake it like a rattle. Anything that gets them trained and called in at night to where the owner can close them in ideally to their night shelter for the nighttime. And then they're released in the morning to do their job. And then follow up. We do provide follow up. There are resources that the ASAP and my program provides to the working cat adopters. We have a fleet control handout. I have that in the handouts, and also fleet abatement like information. We do have some free medicines. We encourage them to establish a relationship with a local vet. In the interim, like I just got a call yesterday, oh, Pantera has fleas. And so I know that we can get a dose of liquid flea medication for topical use. Now, that's very unusual. He happens to be a pretty social working cat. And so that can be applied by the owner. And also, we're going to provide a drawn stick because he has a little bit of tapeworm. Credelio is a really good oral flea control method, once monthly tablet, but they need to establish a relationship with a vet to get the oral prescription flea medication. Some prescriptions, some prescription approval through shelter vet can happen in the beginning, but as I said, they need to establish their own vet care. And we do follow up site visits and troubleshooting, going out to see if they're having trouble getting the cat in at night or, any issues. We can go out there and give them some advice. And this program is entirely free, funded by donations to the ASAP Cat Shelter. And we do encourage donations from the working cat adopters, but it's definitely not mandatory in any way. And we will relocate a cat that doesn't get along with resident pets. If we've placed a cat and it's not getting along with the other cat we placed it with, or any of the resident pets, will provide the service of trapping that cat and placing it as a solo cat somewhere where it'll be a lot happier and a better fit. And then we also do some data collection, and which I'll show you on the next slide. Here we show how we placed that my program placed 70 cats in just this last year, and 77 cats were placed in 2022. And I've just started an annual survey. Here's the survey. Very interesting. Just got their contact information. How many, you may not be able to read this, but you can kind of get an idea how many cats it asks, how many cats were placed with you, what happened to the cats if they're no longer with you, how long did you keep the cats enclosed in the cages, and that's where we gather our information on what's working and what's not in terms of, and we have a little self feedback here, like how responsive has the team been to your questions and concerns? Not at all responsive or very responsive. And that's always good to just know how you're coming across and how well you're doing with the kind of the customer service aspect of it. And do you want more working cats? Of course, we want to ask them, do they want more? And then here are our results. With 31% of the 2023 adopters responding, we have an 88% retention rate. Now, this is the round one of the survey. I'm going to be sending out the survey to the non-responders, the people who haven't responded yet. So I think that 88% may go down a little bit. But for now, we're pretty happy with that retention rate, and it's showing that we're on the right track. 12% of the cats ran away, disappeared. I don't know, according to the adopter. 88% of the adopters give us 5 out of 5 on responsiveness. And 12% of the adopters rated the program 4 out of 5 in responsiveness. So we're getting, out of all the people responding, we were either 4 or 5 on the responsiveness of our program to their needs. And here's a little happy endings photo. I don't know what these names, how to pronounce these names. They're Japanese names except for Coco. That one I can pronounce. But these are 3 of our beautiful Pacific, we called them the Pacifica cats. They came from a hotel suite that was being remodeled. And we trapped them and gave them their medical. Of course, all the cats are altered before being adopted out as domestic cats or working cats. Kind of a normal shelter protocol of altered, vet exam, flea control, deworming. We also microchip the cats and give them their rabies. And so there's some pretty happy cats in Montecito. And so that's all I've got for you today. I just hope we can continue the conversation. I'm definitely open for some questions now as well. And if you'd like to somehow get your email to me, there's my email, workingcats@asapcats.org. Or if you could get your email somehow to Stacy, she may be able to send it on to me. I'm not sure how that would work. You can also follow the ASAP Cat Shelter on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Excellent.
So thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you. And we
Oh,
can
you're
make sure,
welcome.
we'll certainly make sure that all the connections are made. If people have
Cool.
questions, they email me, I can get it over to you, Mary. That's absolutely not a problem. We do have some questions
Yeah.
out there.
Great.
Um,
Great.
do you want to turn your camera on?
I sure will. May take just a moment here. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So we have one person wrote in, any thoughts on 2 working cats that ran away to the neighbors, now living under their porch, when the 2 horses in the barn had a temper tantrum to return back home? They do come home for meals, but then they immediately leave.
Oh, that's so interesting. I would just go with it and counsel those people as to maybe these cats are better off at the neighbors and set them up with another 2 working cats who maybe will be a little less averse to a horse, maybe a little more horse compatible. I mean,
And
that would be my take on that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
how do you identify a horse compatible cat?
That I don't know. It would just be a luck of the draw, just placing cats who perhaps more semi-social cats who are less fearful. That would be one thing that might make them a little less averse to a horse's stamping feet. And so, we're so fortunate at ASAP, we have the behavior team saying, well, this cat is very feral or really non-social, or it's a semi-social cat. And there's all the nuances along that spectrum, of course. You can't just make it, one or the other. However, getting a cat that's a little bit more social, confident, tail in the air, and I think that would be the winning ticket. And also seeing if there's a way to set up the acclimation cages and encourage and the cat's feeding station ultimately far away from the horses if possible, if possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did a time ago, did a relocation of a group of cats. It was four cats that had bonded in the shelter. They all came from different places. It was a real odd couple group. And one of them, so they had actually their own stall as
Oh yeah.
their home base, and it was chicken
Hmm.
wired in, so it was their holding area. And then they,
Hmm.
opened the door and they let them come in, and then they put them back in their stall at night, just like the horses went into their stall, the cats went into their stall.
Yeah.
But you could see the during the day, two of the cats would like disappear totally. Another cat was like more social with the people, and the third cat would like be on the backs of the horses. And like
Oh my gosh.
it was a riding school. And so when they were
Well, but
doing the classes with the kids, the cat was like up in the rafters, like looking down on the ring while the kids were riding the horses. And then when the kids were gone, the cat was like on the horses. And they all four cats lived very
oh my
long
gosh.
lives. Everybody knew them. It was
Yeah.
one of those magical placements where they lasted for quite a
Oh,
long
sounds
period of time.
great. Sounds
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
They did rehome them, or they regrounded them for quite a while in that cage. The other thing, and I forgive me if I got this wrong, but when I
Mhm.
was doing barn relocation adoptions, I would recommend that they feed wet food only at night, to try and use that as the bribe to get them into a contained
Good point.
space, into the
Good
tack room.
point.
And even almost don't free feed anything. Put that food out, get them trained. And definitely, I was always going like, click on the can or tap the can so that they know the wet food is coming. Whistling,
Exactly.
bell,
Yeah.
it's clicker training. We're trying to clicker train
Yeah. Yeah.
these barn
Yeah.
cats to come back in, because really the worst things happen to cats at night when they're outside. I mean,
Exactly.
so you really want to train your indoor outdoor cats. You need to train all cats to be in like a safe zone at night. And then
Definitely. And I'll have some adopters asking me, but the rodents are out at night. They'll, not all of them, not all adopters, but some people are like, can't the cat be out at night? And I'm just, you're going to be better off bringing the cat in at night. You will have a cat for a longer period of time. If a predator gets the cat, then you're out of luck. And if that happens, I rarely will place if a cat has gone missing, if it hasn't worked out. We can do some troubleshooting to see if there's any way to improve retention. But frequently, we have enough applicants, fortunately. If it doesn't work out in an area, I move on to another area where I'm going to hopefully get someone a little more dedicated to bringing them in, et cetera.
it's a different case if you're talking about a brewery, if you're talking about a greenhouse, like where you can lock them into the
Yeah.
greenhouse and let them do their work in that as long as you're ensuring that they truly are in that greenhouse space or in the brewery space, and that they
Yeah.
aren't at risk of predators into that space. So they can do their work
Yeah.
in the city, or if you're in a greenhouse or something like that. But if you're, you can lock them into the barn as long as they get into the
Yeah.
barn, and that's fine, but just not letting them be outside during the nighttime. Get them into a place
Exactly.
where the predators aren't going to come for them.
Definitely.
We talk a lot of questions about retention rates and what are the ideal retention rates. And I don't think
That is so interesting. I
that
actually am just beginning the networking process. I'm hoping that out of this conference will spring some networks where I can start seeing how other people are doing and how are they doing their follow-up, how are they gathering their data, and just to get an even better idea, like just to see like how people are doing.
I mean, I think that there's definitely a ranking scale. We did do tracking of our barn relocation program back in the 90s, and it was probably by year 3 a 50% rate of cats that were still there, and we felt pretty solid, pretty good about that,
That's
even
good.
after 3
Yeah.
years. And but still, there were like scenarios where you had like 100% success, and then it was like 30% success. So
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
it depends on the people, depends on the setup, it depends on the determination of what they were doing. The other thing too, and I've got to remember, I'm going back in my barn, came from like, where did the cats source from, and where did they go? And trying, there
Mhm.
was some correlation between like city cats being moved to the country or country cats being moved to the country. So it's like understanding the environment and where they were
Right.
going, and also
Right.
the bond of the cats. So if you took 6 cats from one area that they were bonded to from
Yes.
like a city area, you moved them to a barn, all 6 cats would usually stay together. But
Yes, we
if
do
you
that
took
too.
right, if you took 6 unknown characters and tried to force that bond, you need to work that a lot
Right.
longer to develop that glue, that societal glue to hold them together to
Yeah.
for that success. So many factors are in play to try and determine whether it's going to be a successful placement or not. And sometimes we
So true.
don't have that capacity to be able to kind of work the case, because we've got a backlog, and we're trying to move cats around. And
Exactly.
so yeah.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, retention is definitely interesting on that one. All right. Okay, so any advice on how to, well, okay, so we just sort of covered that. Okay. Do you place unsocial cats with no outdoor experience as barn cats, i.e. cats from a hoarding situation, or house ferals?
Now that would be the ideal thing placement for a nursery where it's more contained. They don't have to deal with traffic. They're not having to deal with the realities of the outdoor world. So those are the kinds of placements we would line up. And we do try to match, as you just said, matching their background with where they're going so that they'll be comfortable, have a good fit, and just, yeah, just be happy and have a good chance of survival.
Exactly. And I will say, in Massachusetts, since we have gotten to the point where we aren't having to do as much trap neuter return or trap neuter relocate, we've actually done some organizations do more barn relocations of cats with behavioral issues that are like
Yeah.
friendly, but they don't do the litter box thing anymore.
Right. Right.
They place those cats into barns versus what you would call your typical feral cat,
Yeah.
and they tend to work out really well. Or if they have a biting history or something like that, and they're like they're overreactive friendly, like you pet
Yes.
them and then they're
Yes.
unpredictable. And so those they like the busyness of a barn life. They like
Yeah.
that sort of uses up that energy that they have, and they tend to work out really well. So I think that the
Yeah. We do
whole
that too.
relocation cat character is a lot wider range than it might have been in the past.
Yeah.
So we have one person here. Yes, recommend nocturnal feeding, i.e., set the routine at dusk. That is recommended to get them into the barns. Do you recommend regular deworming since they hunt mice and they can get worms?
The way we operate now is that we provide solid follow-up and response to any inquiries in that regard. So if we're seeing, of course, it's tough to track the stool of an outdoor cat to see if there are any irregularities. But if they're showing any kind of weight loss, any kind of problems in that regard, we'll refer them to a feral-friendly vet, or as I'm doing with this cat that just must have a bit of a flea infestation and has a tapeworm, just take the Droncit pill and flea medication, encourage them to set up a relationship with a vet, and but not regular deworming. That would be very interesting. And I'd probably need to get some veterinary input in terms of what is the correlation between consuming mice and rodents and what kind of GI issues can develop as a result of that.
Kristen, are you out there? Are you willing to turn on your microphone? Because I have a barn cat related question for you, if she's out there. She'll turn on when she can. She'll join when she can. It's as
Yeah,
she is a there
there
she
she
is,
is. Cool.
Kristen. So I would
Hello.
say in this area, Kristen has much more experience than I do because you are a foster home to lots of not to cats who do sometimes end up in barns. And I'm
Yes.
wondering what
Oh.
your perspective is as being a foster mom to barn cats.
It's always interesting. Let me start the story by saying Stacy made me do this to start off with. I had another cat that I was fostering, and she's like, "You could just take this one. Just lives in the house. It's feral. You're not even gonna know." Because at the time we had to do rabies quarantines for 6 months, which we don't have to do anymore,
Oh,
which is
good.
really nice. But at the time, even if we had a feral come in who had a wound of unknown origin, you had to have the cat somewhere for 6 months. So I took my first one. She made best friends with all the other cats in the house. She wasn't so into me, but I kind of got hooked on hanging out with them. And so, in terms of fostering, it's sometimes a little bit tough because it making the call to send a cat back outside can sometimes be a little bit difficult, especially if I get a lot of fosters from one particular trapper that likes me because I can work with a lot of cats and get them to be house cats, but that's not always going to be the case. And, I'm perfectly happy to let them hang around the house for a year or so and they can just run around and see how they do. But, some cats just don't want to be indoors. And to make that call seems difficult sometimes. But we have the other aspect of working cats that we have is sometimes another cat needs a friend. There a lot of times when we have a cat that is happy to be inside but not super people friendly. Like you'll see them around. They're not like a house spirit where, they're there but they disappear the second you think you see them. They'll sit in the room with you and things like that. But a lot of times Jen, who's our foster program coordinator, will send a cat that is kind of semi okay with people, but really is a cat's cat. They'll go be friends with another cat that needs a buddy. So that's often another option that we have that happens sometimes. But yeah, it's adult ferals are a tough gig sometimes. So,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
I
that's
question though, because I'm trying to think of the scenario where we have a rescue organization and it only does fosters. So they're instead of being from a municipal shelter, we're talking about you're going to be taking these fosters into your home, and then you
mhm.
have to make a decision of should they be relocated to a barn or should we hold out
Ah,
for that situation or should we and so you as the foster home and every organization I'm sure is different but you have to be clear in deciding who decides that. Is it the foster home who makes the decision that it should go to that the cat should go to a barn, or is it the adoption program? And I mean, and I know, and there's always different scenarios for the placement, so it's also finding the right placement. So that it's probably, I would assume it's a mutual conversation. Kristen, you give feedback.
what usually happens is, if I have a cat that I really don't think is going to be indoor friendly, like just not, is very unhappy. And usually that's what I'm using to measure it. Like if they seem happy indoors, like that's fine. We'll find them a place indoors. At some point, somebody will come along who is going to be the right person for that cat. But if it's a cat that I don't think is going to be happy, usually if I say I don't think this is going to be, they're not going to flip for me, is usually what I say. And Jen will then seek out a barn home for them. And then sometimes she'll know that I've had a few fosters for an extended period of time. And, I'll work with them forever. But sometimes if a good barn home has applied, she'll be like, "Oh, you have like 3 guys right now. Do any of them you think would be good at a brewery or a barn or what have you?" And if I have one that I think that's going to be good for that and, was maybe going to turn, but not, hasn't done it yet, like that might be a situation where we're like, yeah, I think Fluffy would be pretty good at this. So let's go see if he can go catch some mice. So yeah, it's a
Great.
conversation. Like neither one of us really says like, this is what's happening with this cat. It's usually a kind of like, this is the opportunities that are available for this cat right now. Let's see what works out for them. So
Yeah, and I mean, I would also say probably quite a few rescues wouldn't do the volume that you do, Mary, in a year's time for barn relocation.
Right.
And we did have we have like a Massachusetts chat group thing called Mass Cats. And at one point in time, we had a woman in there who was very connected in the horse community, very just incredibly connected. And people would say, "Oh, well, I know you like cats, and we're looking for barn cats." And, and so then she ended up working with a group of organizations to source
Yeah.
cats to help serve these
Wow.
barn owners, which was
Awesome.
really a great way to work, so that it's not like we have to create our own barn relocation program. I mean, you can do your own protocols and all that kind of stuff, but she was helping
Yeah,
facilitate that matchmaking, because is it
that's
worth it
neat.
having a barn program if you're going to relocate 10 or 12 cats? I mean, or officially call it a
Right,
barn relocation program.
right, right,
So,
right.
I thought collaborating, multi groups together collaborating makes a lot of sense for one volunteer heading up that program, I guess, for the, collection of
Right.
organizations.
Like in Santa Barbara County, we have shelters to the north of us, and I just got an email there. They have a situation where protective custody cats, 7 of them were found in a home where with a lot of drug paraphernalia, just a sad situation. And these cats need an outcome, and they're semi-social. She doesn't think they're really adoptable as domestic house cats. So they're coming to my program, and I'm glad because I have actually needed some cats. So we have a good population to source from here in Santa Barbara County between the North County, and there's a shelter in Lompoc. We have Santa Maria, Lompoc, and Santa Barbara. We're all under Santa Barbara County Animal Services, and they send all their requests to ASAP to me for barn homes, and it's just lovely. It's really good.
Just someone's asking if there's any national retention rates for working cats, and I would say that
That
there's
is a
nothing
great
at this
question.
nothing at this
Yeah,
point in time. And I'm gonna also just tell you all, statistics have a role, but be careful with your statistics, because
yeah,
live release rates mean nothing to me. I hate to tell you this, but it means nothing to me because it doesn't tell me anything about community cats. It tells me about what's
yeah,
going on in that shelter, which is great, wonderful. I'm all for no euthanizing cats due to space constraints. I'm all for that. Great. And I am all for euthanizing cats that are experiencing pain and suffering, and there's no way to heal them, and it's their time, and we can end their lives compassionately through euthanasia. I'm all for that
mhm,
too, but that doesn't tell me anything about what's going on with our community cats. I mean, it can tell me maybe a little, but
yeah,
I think we have to be really careful about our statistics and what we're looking at. Just all I'm just going to say is tread carefully, because numbers can be manipulated, and then they're not telling the whole story. So, we can try and use some other guidelines, but with all statistics, not just cat
good
statistics,
point.
but with all statistics, please tread carefully. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
there's not like a national association of barn cat programs, which would be kind of cool to have, like, a national get together of barn
yeah.
cat programs. Wouldn't that be cool? So, what is the protocol for the 12% of cats that disappear upon follow-up? Is there anything you do at that point?
Well, we just encourage the owners to continue to put food out as long as as long as it makes sense for them for at least several months, put up posters in the neighborhood, talk to neighbors, kind of all the classic lost cat procedures that you would go through, and not to give up because cats can come back after a very long
Mhm.
period of time. And yeah,
And you can do lots of cameras. The camera, we keep hearing from Ryan
cameras.
Cordes, camera technology is just, oh my gosh, crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so and I'm
Good
hoping pretty
point.
soon we'll
Good
have a
point.
presentation on the trail cameras and that kind of stuff, because there's now like motion censored cameras that will pick up and what?
I
Oh,
have some. I just got some. I'm very excited about them. I have some
wow.
new because I have a feeding station in my backyard. I have some cameras that I just got that are out there capturing all the cats, so I get to see who's eating and
Cool.
the occasional raccoon.
Cool.
Excellent. Excellent.
That's
Well,
cool.
Mary, this was
Cool.
great. Excellent. Great conversation. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for advocating
Thank
for
you
the
as
cats,
well.
the barn relocation
Yeah.
program. Really appreciate it.